What is Mark?
What is Mark? His poem goes, hold fast to dreams, because if you let them die, life is like a broken winged bird that cannot fly. It makes you very aware that you have to, it sounds cliche, but you do really have to value and make the most of every day. So that's what I try to do. And like I say, the two words that drive me all the time, purpose and meaning, I get more satisfaction on that than I did. Well, let's put it this way, it compares with working with world champions I work with in boxing and working in professional football and rugby. The year of Idi Akinbiyi, Tommy Doherty, Scott Murray, Brian Tinney, Nicky Bell, those people. And John Ward said, right, this is great. And John, once a month, would bring them down as a squad to the gym, and I would do an hour and a half boxing circuit with him. And Mark's the best fitness coach I've worked with outside the Premiership. But there was Rio around, there's Michael Owen, there was Ryan Giggs, there was Schmeichel, there was da-da-da-da-da. And in the main, they really, really liked what we were doing. And in fact, Michael Owen was doing rehab and saw us doing stuff with the coaches on the straps and looked over at us and said, why can't I do that? That was great fun. And he was moaning to his physio. I changed our Italian preparation coach called Guido Bruscia. Another fantastic person that's influenced me because it's given me the confidence to fulfill the intuitive connection I've seen with, I've had these ideas there, but they've articulated and they've actually executed those at a high level and made me think, wow, so that is the right path.
Gym Japanese.
Yeah, I'm naming the gym Tommy's Gym after my son who took his life 2.5 years ago. Why is it, rhetorical question, that the biggest killer of young men is suicide? When he was really, really ill, he told me that I was his hero and that he really looked up to me.
Welcome to the JT Mind and Body Balance podcast. I'm your host, James Taylor. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you could be so kind to like, share and follow us on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook, and also Spotify and Apple Podcasts, then I'd really appreciate it. All the subscribers I do have already, it means the world to me that you have subscribed, and I really appreciate every single one of you. If any of you have any questions or if you like a certain guest on to speak, then please don't hesitate to contact me on any of those social media platforms. I hope you enjoyed this episode and let's get into it. What is Mark?
What is Mark? A very complicated person. I would say, James, I'm a contradiction, and I always have been. I know that in recent times people are... Society, I think, and culture is like almost driven to put people in pigeonholes and slots and give them labels. I think that can be reductive. There's a necessary process that I guess people have to be classified to a degree. And that's a very loose comment, but it's a huge generalisation. But I think that to pin a person down, so the specific, I'm not avoiding your question, it's a great question, who is Mark? I'm somebody who has a great deal of passion for life, incredible energy. I feel deeply. I feel others' pain. I don't like to see people suffer. I would say I'm very much aware of my inadequacies. I frustrate myself with things I can't do. I'm very hard on myself. I'm a perfectionist, which in itself is a contradiction in terms because I recognise that perfectionism doesn't exist. It's an illusion. But I'm somebody who wants to find purpose in my own life and meaning in my own life. I can't be somebody, since a child, I just can't go through the motions. I'm pretty all or nothing, really.
If you were to look to the future, how are you trying to achieve your purpose then? Chase the endless pursuit of perfection, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
At the moment?
So to be the best version of myself, I think, James, I think that for me, trying to put, if it's possible to do so, put my tragedy to one side, which has obviously changed me completely. But I think that I've always being aware that life's a gift, to make the most of every day, to be grateful. In my time of life, it sounds morbid as the fact that so many people in their 60s and our time of life are inflicted with injury or illness, and it makes you very aware that you have to, it sounds cliche, but you do really have to value and make the most of every day. So that's what I try to do. And like I say, the two words that drive me all the time are purpose and meaning. I don't want to waste life. I don't want to, I want to try and contribute to, and I don't mean that in an egotistical, or again, using a word I don't like a lot, so I think it's bandied about almost as freely as the word legend, narcissist. I'm not really sure what people mean when they use that word. I'm very aware that I'm a very, very flawed human being, and I don't see myself as a messiah at all, or of course I don't, or people doing such great things in this world, but I want to make a difference. I've seen so much suffering and sadness that if I can help alleviate, particularly those that I love and care about, and if I can touch a few lives and try with my experience of life recently, make a difference and help them in some way.
Do you have any projects that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, massively so. So I've been in sport, as you know, for 40 years. And the project I have right now is yet another reinvention of myself, which is fantastic. The drivers are many. It's time for change. I've moved to this region, the South Cotswolds, which is amazing. So it's a haven of countryside. It's a new start and a new beginning. And I think that I'm trying to leave my old life and all the trappings that and commitments that I had and start again. So the idea is to, I'm actually in the process of nearly completing a conversion of my garage into a safe training space, a personal training space, to continue to work with people I'm already working with, who are long-term friends and are a pleasure to work with, but also to try and reach out to people who are struggling with mental health issues, stress, grief, trauma, anxiety, and would feel comfortable in a one-to-one environment and be given motivation and inspiration to try to help them be active, to be focused and disciplined, to in some way offset and reduce their struggle.
Anyone listening, do you have a name for it yet? Or do you have a name for the gym? Do you have a name?
Yeah, I'm naming the gym Tommy's Gym after my son, who took his life 2.5 years ago. And it's in honour of him, because he was a therapist who struggled throughout his life through all sorts of reasons. He was very badly bullied at school because of his sexuality. He was gay. And he also was deeply troubled with depression throughout much of his life. But how he coped was he turned himself into a magnificent therapist. That's not bias, that's not a throwaway comment. Since he passed, I've had a lot of anonymous and specific messages from people who obviously I don't know many of them, who mentioned how much he'd helped them in their lives, save their lives, literally save marriages. So I think in honour of his memory and his work and his spirit and his kindness, I can't think of a better name for my gym as Tom's Gym.
Right. I think he'd be proud. I think he'd be proud of that.
Yeah, thank you. I think the word duty sounds a little bit stern. Probably not the appropriate word. I just I'm following my heart. I've got to. I feel that within me there's lots of flashy names and there's lots of sort of catchy names as well. But it's just a simple, it's not made for impact. It's just what I want to do and what I want to call, because I feel his spirit, I feel his energy, and I want to carry on where he couldn't, for whatever reason. And it's very important to me that drives me on. So the essence of my being right now is trying to find a meaning for him, and to take that as a celebration rather than be, bogged down and immobilised as I have been in the past, with a paralysing sort of grief and confusion and uncertainty about, how does one carry on when you suffer that. So I think it's an assertion of positivity, it's an assertion of strength, it's a symbol of determination, of, again, I say this with great humility, there are people literally who are saving lives in hospitals, and there are great people doing wonderful things with charity and missionaries and people. I'm not putting myself up there. There's no grandiose self-importance here. It's just I'm following my heart and just being me, and that's what I've got to do.
Yeah. I think it's important that you go from maybe a negative, which kind of in a way has to happen or is most likely to happen initially, to then turn it into a positive. But then some of the things you said then, when I really listened, if you don't mind, what was that time actually like, the negative? What was that period of your life truly like for anybody who could be going through something similar, who you could potentially help by speaking about how you got through that time and what that time was truly like for you and your family?
That's a great question, and it's a profound question, and there's no easy answer to that. And I'd say that it's, again, I think the importance of using the right words, the power of communication is everything in life. This is why I think text and emails can be sometimes misread, the ambiguity of the written word, and this is why I'm striving to say the most important thing that's ever happened to me. The word is unthinkable, because we were and remain an incredibly close family. How do I define incredibly close family? You've got lots of really good questions, I know, and I don't want to get bogged down in defining and justifying every comment I make, but all I can say is we were a real unit, and Tommy was a twin, and he was remarkably close to his twin sister, and so he was going through a period where he was successful, especially post-COVID, in his own therapy career. He wasn't a drinker, never took drugs, and he was somebody who was vegetarian, extremely disciplined, very much into his fitness training. He was a regular attender of the gym, but he was also did a lot of running as well. He loved water swimming. He was a good athlete, but he plummeted into a downward spiral, which I've lived with mental health in my parents. I've experienced depression, but this was something that nothing prepared us for. I felt extremely helpless because Tommy was profoundly unwell before he eventually took his life. He descended in January of 23 into a reclusive, withdrawn, stopped becoming immaculately dressed, immaculately tidy, very disciplined with his food. He showed all warning signs that were really bad, and my wife thought I was going to work and attending the gym. I didn't go to work. I was very frightened about what he was going to do. I don't want to be too graphic, but there were attempts to harm himself, which I prevented him from doing on a number of occasions, and found certain things that were going to lead to harm him, and I prevented that, and I actually slept on the landing for 4 nights. I didn't trust him. I hid his keys, I locked the doors. I was desperate, so I didn't sleep properly it's not about me, but I'm just saying what happened. I didn't sleep properly probably for 3-4 months. And the final straw was when I was at home on a Friday morning and heard a very strange noise, and he was attempting to hang himself in my hallway. And I pulled him down, and at that point my whole world fell apart. I realised how serious things were. He wasn't angry, he wasn't distracted, he wasn't aggressive. He just said, "Dad, I don't know what I'm doing." And I could tell that he was deeply, deeply mentally unwell. And so he was then institutionalised for a period of time. And he came out, he sent me a message saying, "Dad, I want to make it up to you, Mum and Holly. I want to get out. I need to come home." He passed all the interview processes. It's all surreal, all incredible. And he was told he was good to go. So I celebrated by saying, right, let's go to where we used to go on family holidays in Pembrokeshire, in this Haven I was attending. And so I rented a luxury caravan for 3 days to celebrate. And he was the happiest and the most incredibly old Tommy I've ever seen. He was play fighting with me, running up the steps, saying, "Come on, old man, catch me if you can," sort of thing. He was great, he was just amazing. It was like an amazing transformation. But 2 days afterwards, he took his own life. And I've been told by the experts that this is very common amongst people that are in that downward spiral, that inescapable return to take their own lives. And basically, obviously, I wasn't rational at the time. My emotions, I was sleep deprived, food deprived, probably wasn't very well myself at the time because I'd been going through, this protective anxiety where my heart rate, my blood pressure, for the first time in my life, would go through the roof because I sensed that this is for real. This wasn't attention seeking, this is for real. So actually when he finally died, and he died in my arms, I was called home from the gym, was told that Tommy had had an accident, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought, "Oh God, poor bugger, he's got so much bad fortune." And the day before, he'd taken me out for a meal, said, "Dad, I want to take you out to the Bolero Lounge," and he bought me a meal. And I went to pay, and he said, "No, I'm going to pay." And he was like thinking, wow, And I'd got him a job in Nando's. He was very proud, and he sort of, like I said to him, "Tommy, look, you've lost all your clients. You've been very unwell for 6 months. Even if it's just a total of a bit of money, a bit of social interaction, I've been chatting with Nando's," and he said, yeah. And he was on his way to do that job, and then what happened. So, if I'm honest with you, James, I think I plummeted a depth of unreality and surreal nightmare where I lost myself completely. I didn't sleep more than 3 hours for about 6 months after that. I lost 2 stone in weight. I couldn't eat. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to go. I didn't feel self-destructive or self-harming, or I certainly didn't feel suicidal myself. But I was paralysed mentally, emotionally, and physically, and was profoundly unwell physically as well, mentally. And to see the suffering of my daughter and my wife was worse than my own suffering, particularly Holly, his twin, who was just broken. And so I would say to anybody that knows anybody who is suffering and is having a really, really bad time, be proactive, seek help. There's no easy solutions, but don't turn blind eye to it. It's pretty heavy shit.
Yeah, I need a minute. Yeah, that's I don't think I know there aren't any parents out there who you can't comprehend that. You think you might be able to. I was trying to put myself in that scenario, I just can't. I'm lucky enough to be a dad myself, and I just can't put myself in in them shoes, like I really just cannot understand what that feeling must be like. It must be so, it's undescribable.
I appreciate the words. I think I can only put it in my own context, so I'm not trying to steer anybody's feelings. We're all wired up differently, and we will all respond differently to things, but I've never found it hard to express myself, whether it's in a coaching sense, whether it's in an academic sense. I've always been able to, well, at least try to find the right words. My whole business as a coach has been based on finding the right words to inspire, motivate, and encourage, and be positive. But it meant that I had to go into the very depths of my being, and although not an Orthodox Christian, I've always believed in God. I've always believed in the power of love, positivity, nature, family. Certainly not a Puritan, but I've been very anti-drug all my life. I'm not teetotal, but I've obviously had to be quite disciplined in my life academically and sportingly to pursue my life. So I've always believed in a structure and having values to adhere to. But everything falls apart. Nothing makes sense when something like that happens because it's inexplainable. The caveat to this is, which is substantial, is that Tommy was my only son. He was, by nature, we were very, very close because Debbie and I were running a gym when they were very young. So I had a hands-on, my wife taught step brothers, so 2 nights a week I would come home and put the children to bed. So change their nappies, bath them, feed them, tell them stories until they were sort of 5 or 6. So I was very much a hands-on dad, which I loved, and did everything with them. They were my life, and obviously it is very special having twins, especially if I were a girl. And it was incredible because, although grey now, I was very dark when I was younger, and both my children were white blonde until they were about 10 or 11, so they were literally like angels. And Tommy was a robust, clever, very athletic, incredibly loving brother and son, and he was just a beautiful child, and a little bit shy, but robust, physical. And then as he got into puberty, he started to have problems at school, and so much so that I had to attend the school and liaise with the parents who were bullying Tommy, which I did, and it stopped. But Tommy, through his sexuality, had a problem which he confessed towards the end of his life, where he stopped being really close to me. There were times when he didn't, on occasion, and this is not a criticism of Russ's soul, but he didn't send any birthday cards. He was encouraging his mum to see me a certain way. And whereas Holly was very much daddy's girl, just consistently the same as she'd been as a little girl, that she loved her dad with everything and was a really close friend, Tommy and I became distanced, not on my behalf. It's not an apology or a self-defense. I am the least homophobic person in the world, and he knew that anyway. It wasn't about me being homophobic or not being able to come to terms with his sexuality, but Tommy said that because of the world I was in, he'd grown up in a gym, literally, where big tough rough bodybuilders and boxers and people like that. And I worked on the doors, and regrettably I had to do that for a time. And I think that he confessed that he found that polar opposite of the way he was just in his sexuality, not the way he was as a person with life. It didn't define him, but he presupposed that I was disappointed in him, and as a result he expressed it as antagonism towards me, and it was a burden for him. Although I welcomed his partners and ironically became good friends with his partners when he brought his partners home, and he actually confessed how his partner's parents and their particularly covered that the dads had cast the sons out when they found out they were gay. Tommy knew I was completely opposite to that. So it was very complicated. And so it made it even more difficult for me because I didn't have the linear, conventional father-son relationship from his teens onwards that I had with my own dad, who was my best mate, who was my best friend, almost like a big brother. And I guess I was kind of grieving that in his life, if I'm honest with you. A number of times where I would be out with really good mates, my brother, and I would see the bond between them and their sons, and I recognised I didn't have that. And I literally broke down on a couple of occasions in front of my brother where I was just so, not jealous, not envious, but just I was aware that I didn't have that. But the most important thing is it all came full circle because during COVID, Tommy saw me as exposed, vulnerable as a coach in his 50s, late 50s, who, what did I have to do? I had to keep paying the mortgage, and he was so kind. He gave me advice on how to use social media, Zoom. He was very encouraging, and we became really close friends again, and it was absolutely beautiful. And we did all the things we used to do. The love of nature, music. He would send me tunes, send me funny messages, and all sorts of things like that when he moved out. And when he was really, really ill, he told me that I was his hero and that he really looked up to me. So in the end, that sense of so basically I'm at peace with us, but yeah, it's been hard, very, very hard. And I think anybody who's lost anybody to suicide, you're left with, they call it complex grief, because any death is horrendous. Yeah. I lost my dad 18 months before I lost Tommy, and he was really, really close to me. But I could process that because I knew my dad was going to die. He did have terminal dementia, and he was 82. It doesn't make it any less sad, but after a couple of weeks of grieving, you kind of rationalise and you just crack on. Because I owed it to my children and my wife and my friends, my family and my friends to do that. But it is digging deep. There is absolutely no way that any human being, however hard, however strong, however clever, however philosophical, however strident in their beliefs, religious or otherwise, cannot be affected by losing your only son. And it's, as I say, it's the manner in which he passed, the fact that he was suffering so much, and I think that's the thing that gets me. It's bad enough to lose a child in any shape or form. There's no competition in grief, it's just the way I feel about it, and I'm not defending or apologising for the way I feel. It is the way I feel.
It's individual to everyone, isn't it?
And I think, absolutely, everybody's unique in their responses to things, but as you can tell, it's ripped my heart out, and it's very difficult. And I think if anybody who is struggling for whatever reason, and is feeling not just sad or low, but profoundly depressed, there are people who are expert, and the Avon Wiltshire Mental Health Trust, such an irony. An amazing doctor who dealt with me, I call him Dr. Rob, he helped me get back to being me, and he saw in me that spirit and that drive and that energy and just honesty, and he really helped. But he said out, and I said to him, "Thank you so much for all that you've done." And he confessed that he didn't see, because he and his team were part of the team that said Tommy could leave the institution, because even the experts, and as brilliant as they were and as brilliant as he was with me, they couldn't save Tommy. And so there's no magic wand. It's for anybody that's struggling out there with profound anxiety or grief, or depression. It is something that even 10 years ago, when I was growing up, you'd say, "Oh, pull yourself together, pull your socks up." Thank God it's better for men now, that men like myself, and wearing the Ricky Hatton t-shirt, being the bloke that I am, can just be honest. There's no point in me putting on the front and being cool and relaxed and trying to impress people, because I'm not interested in that. I'm just being me. I've got my clothes on, but I'm naked, if you know what I mean. I'm bearing my soul.
Yeah.
And losing Tommy has, changed the way I am forever. And if I in any way, first and foremost, I just want my wife and my daughter to be okay, to do all the best I can to help them, inspire them, love them, protect them, support in any way. But also, I do feel this energy that I want to, not just to help people get bigger biceps or get abs or make them run faster. I want to help people because of my experience, what I've been to. I've been literally to hell. There are things that I also experienced, which I won't go into, because I think it's not fair on the audience, so not fair on you, James, as a valued friend, to unleash. But there are things that happened to me that shouldn't have happened. Well, in fact, I'll just give one, because it's not as bad as maybe some of them. Whilst I was looking around the show home of the house I eventually bought with Holly and Debbie. After Tommy died. Yeah, sorry. I had a text message, and I do believe in an afterlife. I do believe that we, 100%, I'll go back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
There was a message on my phone saying, "Dad, I've lost my phone. Can you send me some money? I've dropped it down the sink, it's got wet. Please can you send me?" And I thought Tommy was alive again. I thought he'd come back to life. So I actually went to the bottom of my road and said I would meet him. And it was a scam. The police looked into it, and it was somebody randomly chose my number. And the irony of it all was, Tommy, before he died, had dropped his phone in the sink, and it was out of action, and we did have to get him a new phone. Now, what are the chances of that? You've got more chance of winning the lottery. And this person had so convinced me, and even the text was the way Tommy would have spoken. Now, I was hypersensitive, traumatised, so my brain wasn't as rational as it should have been. And this is probably 5 months after Tommy died, and I walked to the bottom of my road in the middle of the night to meet my son, who was dead. And so it wasn't just that I lost my son, Debbie lost his son, I lost a twin, and that's how Ben, my stepson's brother as well, of course. It wasn't just that, it was just, another layer of incomprehensible suffering that shouldn't have happened. But what do? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you want people to go there? Do you want people to say, "Oh, that's awful"? No. Because I don't want, I've often said to a lot of people, I've spent my whole life being upbeat, because I'm sincere in that, positive, loving, kind, and that's not a boast, it's a fact, I know I have. I'm not self-driven, I consider myself to be very unselfish. I feel that people suffer and I want to help people, that's the way I've always been. But it tests you, because you suddenly think, and again it's very childlike, isn't it, but you think, hang on, I've not gone out doing X, Y and Z, extremely bad things, I've not followed a life of crime, it sounds very exaggerative and it sounds, as I say, very, very childish, but
I get what you mean,
why me kind of thing, and anybody must feel like that. Why is this hell being unleashed? And you can't explain it. To try and overthink it and to try and make sense of it, I can't, I never will. And it's impossible to do so. So you have to accept somehow. And you said, how did you come through it? What do you learn from it? And it's to value every day, to value situations like this.
Yeah.
Value people like yourself, who are rare, who are intuitive and kind, who you connect with, and value the people that matter in your life, and try and live your best life, whatever that means. You know, to try and make a difference. It's not all about me now going spending the rest of my, not got that much money left, but of my mum and dad's inheritance and buy a cruise around the world or something like that. Now, if that's what somebody wants to do, and without making a dad joke, if that floats your boat, happy days. But that's not for me. I don't want to sort of like, you know, retail therapy. I don't need that. I don't need anything. I think that, so going back to the idea of the initial question of the project of Tommy's Gym, it's on a real level, it's the attempt to keep the connection with some super friends I've made over the years as a coach in a bespoke facility which I've chosen. So the equipment it's not a vast area, but you know, it's going to be what it is. It'll be very professional, it'll be very homely, but most importantly, it's doing something, again I come back to this phrase, with a purpose and hopefully a meaning, and that's to try and help. And I mean that with great humility, but to try and help people, and if just one or two people, like we've said before, can be helped in some way, then that's living your best life.
I think if we touch on the name, I think the name there is no better name, because a name that has meaning, has real purpose, is one in which we'll connect with anybody who steps foot in the gym.
Yeah.
It's not a generic, just, I'm going to go Google some good gym names.
That's a great comment.
It's
a great comment.
People will step, like you said, about the energy in which you step foot in a gym with a name like that, knowing the history. If someone listens to this and then goes step foot in your gym, for example, it's going to be pretty profound, because they're going to really understand more of the story. It's really hard to get. I'm finding it's really hard to get across, even in social media, the real story. Nobody really knows what that's like.
No.
Not even Holly, your daughter, and Debbie, your wife.
Yeah.
No, because they've had their own experience of.
Oh, absolutely. It's a personal thing.
Yeah, exactly. So to ask a stranger is almost impossible. But what it will do is it will give them a snippet of understanding about, oh wow, like this is powerful, seriously powerful, because this really means something to this person.
Well, James, that's very, very deceptive, because I did actually interrupt myself and lost my train of thought amongst my emotions just then. And that was where, what I was trying to say is, I don't feel comfortable. I feel very comfortable in this situation, being uncomfortable. So
yeah,
that's compliment to you. And you can see how sincere I am in wanting to have done this, and I wanted to be in the right frame of mind, because that incident that happened a few minutes ago, I wouldn't have come back from that 2-3 months ago. I would have just been this would have been a washout in every sense. Now, here's the thing. I actually, when I tell my story verbally, face to face or whatever, I say to people every time, they say I don't want to say, and I say, look, I feel sorry for you, because if I was in your shoes and I was listening to your story that was my story, what can another person say, however empathetic, however compassionate, however articulate, how can anybody find the right words? Because there aren't right words. So I actually feel sorry for anybody when they hear my story and that grief, because I've spent all my life doing, through choice, from my heart, the opposite of spreading, you can do this, you can't be beat, you will overcome this injury, you will beat this illness, you will become faster, you will lose weight, you will be confident. So all of that yes power that I've believed in and still believe in, I'm then by absolute necessity having to give my story, because it's a bit like, it's a crass metaphor, but the boxer who's been knocking people out and has his first defining defeat and can't come back from it, you then have to find a way to reinvent yourself, and you then possibly can't be in the fight in the true sense, but you modify or modulate your role as maybe a coach or whatever you decide to do, and you redefine yourself. And that's what I'm having to do, because I grew up in a world where it was, the word gay was a slur, queer, you know, it was so, people talk about PC and politically incorrect. I know I get bogged down in a woke mentality, but it was a fact that people would say, oh, that if something was a bit strange, they say, well, that's a bit gay, you know. So those slurs were still around, but thank God the world is changing, and most importantly, apart from the sexuality things, the mental health thing, why is it, rhetorical question, that the biggest killer of young men is suicide? Why is it that young men struggle? I don't know. So something's wrong. And am I saying that by opening my gym, albeit a beautiful area, a haven of tranquility, one-to-one, personal, meaningful, with Tommy's story, as you touched upon, does make a difference? It does. It's not me, it's the vibe, it's the
why.
It's the why.
It's the why.
It's
The why
the
is what will stand out.
That's brilliant, because I don't want it to be that I'm then, because people listening to this, I've hardly made them think, not that this being the purpose of this wonderful opportunity to speak to you on this podcast. My motivation wasn't to promote or sell my business, far from it. I've never sold or tried to promote myself. People have been lucky, I've been lucky in the past, people have come to me. My motivation is actually to make clear that it's not, when you walk through that doors, it's not a shrine to Tommy, it's not a memorial to him. Well, yes it is, in a positive sense, but it's not a sombre negative. When people walk through that door, I want them to feel
positive,
the positivity about how I feel about my son, and about the connection where he didn't make his peace with me, because I never stopped loving him for 1 minute, but for the very fact that before he descended into football insanity, frankly, when he was hallucinating and seeing things frequently, he managed to get across how he truly felt. Now, do I miss him any less? No. But I can, as I say, with the complexity of losing anybody to suicide, but particularly with somebody that had his struggles with his own sexuality and his relationship with me, it's even more complicated than that. So I guess that what do? You say to yourself, I need to find purpose and meaning in my life, and that is, if I can, to be the strongest I can be, and I don't mean in a macho, reductive sense, but resilient, kind, a communicator, compassionate, and energy. And I've still got that. And I'm determined in his name to do that, to celebrate his existence, my bond with him, his great physique, and his spirit. And if somebody walks into that gym, it will be an honour for them, not only coached by me, but to be in that environment.
I hope you don't mind me saying, it was beautifully said, by the way, the way in which you spoke for the last 30, whatever it is, odd minutes.
But bless you, thanks as well.
I hope you don't mind me saying that I think he would be proud. I think he'd be, if he was sat here, he'd be proud of you. Proud of you as his dad, to, not because you're naming the gym after him, but because through the power of love, through the power of resilience, strength, real strength.
Yeah.
You carried on. You keep carrying on every day. When I'm sure there were days where you just didn't want to carry on, or you couldn't, or you felt like you were, like you said yourself, you couldn't, but you kept going, and whatever that looked like. And you, for Holly, Debbie, for him, like, you just kept going, and that just 1% every day eventually will just has now got you to where you've got to. But
That's been very, very intuitive and very perceptive, James, because that's exactly true. Yeah, you're good at this.
But
you are. I mean, I say good at this. That sounded a bit trivial.
That's fine.
You're.
No, that's fine.
It's.
Thank you.
It's heartfelt. It's heartfelt. And as a compliment to you, I would not be in this situation with anybody else. No chance. I've got a great respect and connection for you, and that's why I'm sat here, because I trust you. I wouldn't have put myself in this situation with a stranger. I wouldn't have wanted to do it. I'm black and white. I either really want to do something or I don't do it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I don't compromise. I can't lie to others, and I don't lie to myself. Not because I'm great, because that's just not part of who I am. I don't do average. I don't do, sit on the fence. And I think as you get older, you realise telling the truth is going to alienate some people. It might disappoint others. Because this whole preacher of pain thing is tongue in cheek. I believe passionately in what I do. I believe passionately in my own ability as a coach. I've been very fortunate to have been in some great situations and learnt a lot in the field, in the gym, in the ring, wherever it might be. And quite frankly, I've been blessed to have got there. It's not been a linear route of career progressions or what have you. It's been a bit random and unpredictable, but there's no doubt about it. I back myself as a coach, 100%. But it's again using that, knowing that you're focused on something that you passionately believe in, and that connection of working with other people, either collectively in a group or in a team, or particularly one-to-one, and just seeing if you can, not seeing, but hoping to make a difference. I'm very results driven, and I think that's the thing about the joy about being in professional sport, is that you are dispensable if you don't get results. And fitness coaches, when I first started coming into the industry, were not de rigueur, whereas now the word sports scientist is bandied about a non-league level. It's just standard. Whereas when I started out in '98, there weren't many fitness coaches, and the world has changed. But it's not about data, though. I don't think life's about data, and I think that yes, we have to have statistics, we have to have reference points, we have to have fact. But it's a bit like in politics. What do we do with the facts? How do we interpret them? And so you have things called normative data. So for people that don't know, that simply means that when I was at the South West of England Rugby Academy, nominated conditioning coach, when I was working with Bristol Rugby Academy, the normative data for a player to do had to lift so much weight, get to so much distance in so much time. But life isn't like that. Now that's fine, there has to be like that. Because I say life isn't like that. That has to be that way. There has to be measurability at the elite level, of course there has.
Yeah.
But I also think it's, when we adhere to those statistics, can I draw that metaphor and extend it out into life? It's trying, as I say, to force somebody through their emotional, physical, intellectual skill set, or lack of, a square peg in a round hole, which I don't like. And I think that the trouble is there has to be generalisations. We can't individualise everything. But I think this is what I enjoy about coaching per se, is that it's getting results, and in those results, I get more pleasure now at my time of life. I'm very grateful and very privileged and delighted to have done what I've done in my past. But I get more pleasure now when I see somebody that's had a car accident and has lost the use of their leg, has been seriously unwell, and I won't mention the name of the person, and had major psychological and personal domestic struggles as a result of that injury, and then have gone on now to dispense with their walking sticks, rebuild themselves physically and mentally, and now applying for jobs, etc. And there's countless stories about people that have broken their necks, literally, people that have had frozen shoulders, people who have had innumerable things that have joined up with me, and from a physiological point of view, you've seen that growth, that breaking barriers. Now I get more satisfaction, people with learning difficulties that I work with, people that are very, very anxious and very depressed, who, and I find this story, I don't advertise for these people that just happen to randomly come my way. And the fact is, I get more pleasure out of that, seeing these, what I classify as people that might fall into the underdog, not victims. Well, yeah, victims of fate, victims of accidents in their illness or whatever it might be. But underdogs, people that are struggling, I get more joy at seeing them have a smile on their face, talk to me about what they did on the weekend, move better or happier, maybe able to get a job, whereas prior to that they were in a bad place. Now I get more satisfaction on that than I did. Well, let's put it this way, it compares with working with world champions I work with in boxing and working in professional football and rugby. It really, really does, from a satisfaction point of view. That's what counts. When I see people that come to see me that aren't professional athletes, that are juggling families, careers, jobs, and all sorts of pressures that life brings, but find that commitment and time, and I'm not denigrating anybody that decides to do this, but sat with a tankard in the pub, usual, barmaid, blah blah blah, and are spending the time trying to make themselves fitter and better. Amazing respect for these people.
How did you start out then? So like, how did that progress? What did it look like? How did you get into the fitness industry?
That's a great question, James. So I was somebody, I start right at the beginning. At school I was, again, I'm going to contradict to myself because we as human beings are known to, at least I'm going to be honest, and I recognise it. So I'm going to contradict myself because I'm going to give myself a label. Because I was dealt with by the crisis team, they did a number of sort of like tests to make sure that my mental health was okay, which is good. And I came out with sort of like 90% ADHD.
Right.
Now it makes sense that when I was at school I found it very hard to concentrate, so academically I was bright. No surprise I spoke early and I spoke a lot.
Yeah.
But I was interruptive, I wasn't violent, I wasn't nasty or spiteful, but I was constantly put in a naughty corner, sent out of class because I wouldn't shut up and was interrupting, and I was noisy, not because I can remember, I actually swear to you in my life, I can remember 5, 6, 7-year-old instances where I wasn't being malevolent or disrespectful to the teacher. I probably was in their eyes, understandably, but I was disruptive.
Yeah.
And this is in the late 60s where classes were 28, 30 people. And so I went to a little primary school where I struggled, but I found my outlet in sport. And I, for not somebody who was very tall, could jump the highest, I ran the fastest, I was captain of the school football team, and I realised I had an identity and a purpose because I was in the bottom 4 academically in my year. And then I went to senior school and struggled really hard again, was very emotional, very anxious for 2 or 3 years, but I found my expression and I ended up playing for the school in all the sports. Now, I found my place in sport, and it started off where my dad saw me as somebody who had his expression, had his outlet in sport, who gained a bit of esteem and friendship from his peers, because I was, decent, I wasn't world class, but I was, a talented all-round sportsman. And in 1973, my dad took me to Rolls-Royce canteens in Patchway, where they ran traditional Japanese martial arts, and back in those days that was not common. The world is full of MMA and martial arts now, but trust me, in the 70s it wasn't, it was a rare thing. And none of my mates, the Ridings was the 10th biggest comprehensive in the UK at the time, that's a fact.
Right.
So it was a massive comprehensive school and nobody was doing martial arts to my knowledge. And my dad saw in me a vulnerability. He was obsessed that I was not to be bullied physically because he'd been bullied because of his accent during the war. He'd been evacuated from London and he was bullied because of his accent. And he thought, well, I want Mark to be robust. And the best thing that ever happened to me, James, because as a 13-year-old boy, I realised that again I had an affinity and ability to pick up the skills of martial arts.
Yeah.
It made me incredibly flexible. The things that you and I now use in our warm-ups, we call it dynamic flexibility. It's got a scientific label, and that's appropriate. Trust me, those moves have been done very similarly and rigorously for 45 minutes before we did any free fighting, katas or sparring.
Yeah.
So I learned the precepts and the concepts of discipline, of fitness
Yeah.
and mental toughness. Now, was it PC? There was a concrete floor. Was there head guards with the gun shields? Was I free fight and sparring, not full contact, but with men of 20, 30, 40-year-olds? Yes. It was crazy looking back on it, and I got kicked to the ground a couple of times. I got punched in the face. But actually, would I recommend it for people now? Is that right? As a dad, is that good for Teddy? No, I wouldn't want any of that for anybody that I'm close to, or anybody I'm not.
Yeah.
But it gave me a grounding, and it set me up on the way, and I realised genetically, although not the tallest, I was blessed to have fast twitch genetics. I was an athlete. And then I went through puberty and realised I was naturally quite lean, quite muscular, and so the whole thing was, I knew my thing was sport. Now here's the dichotomy of Mark Hammond. Here's the contradiction. I'm being honest, I'm not academic. I was bright, and in the end I was a late bloomer. I ended up miraculously getting 3 A levels, and I'm getting a degree and studying for a master's. So I've kind of been a late bloomer, but I just knew that I had to pursue this side of my nature. Now, I was never part of the naughty group who were around the back gas tank smoking, going out, bunking off school, chasing girls, and then I wasn't in the SWAT group who were the geeks or the keeners as they were called.
Yeah.
I was always in the middle, and I could mix with both groups. So I was a bit of a social chameleon, and I found that with sport, I had a level playing field where it didn't matter that I wasn't the brightest or whatever, it was, we were all in the team.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be in sport. What did that look like in, I don't know, 1980, 82, 83? What did that mean? There was no personal trainers. The word in this country wasn't even invented. There were 7 gyms in Bristol. 7. There are more than that in Yate now.
Yeah.
And the whole of Bristol was 7 gyms. And I can talk that because it took me 2 years to find the premises that I set up. So I was determined to, and it was a very loose dream, and I was always inspired by the great poet, not a famous one, a black American poet called Langston Hughes. And it was called Dreams. And his poem goes, "Hold fast to dreams, because if you let them die, life is like a broken winged bird that cannot fly." And that happens to be how I see Tommy, who lost his dreams and lost the ability to fly. I always felt that at that time, as a early 20-something, so slightly younger than you are now, so that's a long time ago, I knew that I had a potential for something. I knew I had this energy, I had this desire to not have the fastest car or to have the biggest Rolex or whatever it might be. It wasn't materially driven, but I thought, I frustrated myself because I knew I could be better than I was. So I kind of and believe it or not, the one subject that I was really, really good at was English literature, English language. I took my GCSE, or in those days O-level, I was 14 because I was very young for my year, and I ended up passing my O-level. That was in the express set. But then what did I do? In the sixth form, I just got together with Debbie, who's my wife, and wasn't academic, or just want to play rugby and football for the school, and do my martial arts and my boxing, and actually, so I ended up actually going to university, and believe it or not, ended up getting a 2 honours degree in English literature. Nobody would believe that about me, in the sense that when people found that out, in fact, when I was knocking about with my mates in Yate, in the gym world, a year after I left, people said, "What did you do?" And I lied. I said to people I'd done social work. Because people would go, "Oh my God, intellectual Wally," or, because they were chippies, they were mothers were scaffolders, and they're going really? Because I was pretty into my trendy clothes. I mean, although I didn't have much money, I always got a John Anthony back in the day. I did like my clothes, I did like my fashion, I liked the terrace clobber, and I was one of the lads. I mean, I wasn't a clone, and I'm still very much an individual, but I was, I suppose I was wanting to be cool, and it just wasn't cool to say English literature, but unbelievably, so there's a strange thing in me. I actually thought about becoming an English lecturer, and I decided, no, I'm young, I've got energy, and much as I love this contemplative reading a book theorising, it was overthinking, and with my ADHD brain, now I realise I just needed to do rather than be passive. And so that was very creative. It's helped me be a communicator, it's helped me be a deep thinker, my studying. Whether people are pro literature or not, some of the great authors have certainly given me the skills to reflect, think and ponder on things anyway, if nothing else. But yeah, so I just realised that I had this dream, could I make it happen? And so I was unemployed. I applied for about 80 jobs in 1984 with a 2L honours degree, and it couldn't buy me nothing. And there was so bad unemployment, there was no male English teachers at the time who would find it very hard to get a job. And so I kind of gave up. I did labouring, and I did manual work, and I did door work, and I got by because I needed to work. I wanted to be busy, and I didn't want to sit my ass watching TV, and I wasn't me at all. And my parents couldn't keep me either, so I owed it to them to still living at home. So consequently, I took myself a certification, which at the time, British Amateur Weightlifters Association in the Empire Gym, which was a practical and theoretical assessment, and it was over several weekends. And I passed that, and I took the instructors, which at the time was the highest benchmark in the industry.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not a degree, but really respected. And I thought, wow, I really want to plunge in. And unbelievably, after being unemployed for nearly 2 years, we went on something called the Enterprise Allowance Scheme, remortgaged a shared property we had with a really good friend of ours called Martin, almost like a brother to me, to be honest with you. And we found a premises in Ashton Drive on the back of the Robbins pub, the city round.
Yeah.
We renovated ourselves with friends and family over 6 weeks. We got a bank in for 20 grand. We had £1,000 between us. And the Enterprise Allowance, I think, was paying us £80 a week each. That was it. And 10 years later, we were still going. So it became a community gym. It was South Bristol, working class environment. Again, the majority of people were tradesmen. It was a good social net. An amazing experience, James. And I think I cut my teeth in being able to interact with all people from all walks of life. And I wasn't a PT per se, I was an instructor, a coach within the gym. And what randomly again, for all the bad fortune I've had in life, which is indescribable, I've also had a lot of good fortune. And we were near to Bristol City, and I developed an affiliation with Buster Footman, the very famous physio at the time, sort of Joe Jordan era, and that would be mid-90s. And eventually, Terry Conn and John Ward were there. I ended up doing some guest sessions for free for 6 weeks.
At Bristol City?
At Bristol City first team.
Football club, yeah.
And then eventually, 2 years later, I was the first ever fitness coach. And it took me a long time to get the role. I'd been working on a sort of consultancy basis with academy players, young players, injured players, and they would send them down to my gym for me to work with. And all of a sudden, wow, I realised that, crikey, all right, no disrespect, but at the time, they were in Division 1 as it is now, but they were my hometown club. My parents were, my grandparents and my mum was from Bedminster, so it was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Leaving the fact I have missed out the fact that I also being in that gym and being that, I suppose, the kind of coach I was, the personality I was, which was very outgoing and positive. I ended up working with 2 or 3 of the Bristol professional boxers. One ultimately Lee Haskins, who became European and world champion. I was a part of his conditioning for his fights. Another salt of the earth legend of a character who's well known in Bristol.
Who now has his own gym.
Absolutely.
Round 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I did some stuff, a couple of sessions with Bristol Rugby Club. They had a wonderful fitness coach who actually was in the same decathlon Olympic Games as Daley Thompson, who was my hero growing up.
Yeah.
A guy called Mark Spivey, he was an Australian, and he was Bristol's first ever fitness coach, Rugby Club that is. And I did some box exercise. Me and Martin, my gym partner, were the first people in Bristol to start this off. And Martin had been a very good amateur boxer. I was pretty decent. But making no sort of arrogant claims there. But we did a proper ABA course, which meant it was authentic. And wow, we got everybody from all over Bristol. all the doormen, everybody. It's such an eclectic mix. But through those classes, there was nothing else like it in Bristol. So people that want to go to a motivating, music-driven. I don't mean Jane Fonda. This was not macho, but in the end it was as many girls as men. But out of that boxer-size, coaches from other clubs professionally had got the word because I've been training individual rugby players, athletes, boxers, and people said, Mark Hammond's designer bodies, go down to that class. And so the whole Bristol rugby squad would come, Paul Hull, Grizzly Adams, great names of that era, just before the game turned pro. And on occasions the whole team would come, and then groups of them would come because they wanted to do the extra fitness, and it was very appropriate. Same with the City players. And so that was an amazing journey.
So you went, just...
By accident, though, James, all of that was accident. It's never been planned. That's pretty much my life, really. It's all accidental. None of it has been planned.
There's a little bit of, like you said earlier about purpose, a little bit of purpose I think maybe comes into play. It's a bit like, you felt at home a little bit in a gym. Is that fair to say?
That's a brilliant point. It is very much my home, because I think...
Home away from home, if that makes sense.
Brilliant comment, because I tried occasionally, and I'll move on to that at some point, where myself and my really dear friend Pete Faulkner, we started up a business which in the end became office-based. Fish out of water, I can't do, again, it's possibly due to my own inner problems, but I struggle to be in a formalised office-type environment. The very fact that I chose to do labouring work says it all, even though I had a good honours degree. I felt more at home on a scaffold, lumping up muck onto the top, than try to work in a computer in an office. That was like a cow at bite time. I was just so clumsy, and it just wasn't for me. So gym, 100%. The gym does feel comfortable to me. Yeah, it does, 100%.
Again, I come back to the thing as we wearing this t-shirt. I mean, that's not... I don't make every decision lightly or glibly, and I thought, I'm not exaggerating or, cashing in on the short meetings we had with the Hatton camp, but it was something that really got to me, because I knew Ricky, like Tommy, was in that spiral of he had made many attempts to himself. And I feel that, this is not my opinion, but I'm speaking from the gut and also listening to people, because I used to ask questions, what happened to Tommy, why did he do it? And they said in their experience, every situation is unique and individual. But when there's what they call acute suicidation, where somebody's in that point where their rational brain is still working, and it is just a sense of relief, because they just can't cope anymore. For whatever reason. That's why they stop thinking about what they're doing to others, because it's not selfish. It's not because people go, oh, they're selfish, they're neighbours. Now look, I'm not going to go into that because that's too deep, but I think that knowing that Ricky had gone through that struggle, and that he'd lost his identity as a boxer, and he was trying to fight back, and he had drug and alcohol problems which exacerbated the situation, but that for me was just so powerful. And it's not exploiting somebody's death or misery and then cashing in on it. For me, it's using that, and just us men saying it was so taboo to be talking for blokes to show emotion, or for blokes to drop their guard and go, actually I'm struggling, actually I'm feeling really sad, actually I need help. Because in my world people would have sneered at you, called you a pussy, take some man-up pills, and that was only about 10 years ago. It really has changed for the better, but we're still nowhere near where we need to be. And I guess that for those that I'm my own mum, I'm a grandfather had cancer, so and people have heart issues, and they went for Heart Foundation, and they do for cancer and stuff like that, and that's the way it should be, and it's admirable, it's fantastic. Dementia with my dad was it, but I think there needs to be, and it'll take time, where the frequency of the erring, continuing rise in suicide amongst young men, that somebody, if not me, who's going to do it, to speak up and bring awareness, because, to be honest, it's not a nice subject, it is still taboo, it is one where all death, all disease is horrendous, but for me growing up, the word suicide was just like, wow, it's gosh. it's got all those connotations, and I think it's just been brave enough to take on the subject and say, look, we haven't got the answers, but we need to create an awareness, we need to show more support for it.
It's true, it's powerful. Yeah. If we were to flip back to going into Bristol City.
Yeah, sure.
You've gone in there. So did that happen? So I actually have no idea, by the way. So
no, this is great. This is really positive.
Did you still have the gym? Designer bodies whilst you were at City?
This is a great question, and to be absolutely precise, it again was bizarre. So we'd had the gym for 9 years, and David Lloyd's Ashton opened, and eventually realised we'd had a grant, by the way, from the Foundation of Sport and the Arts that after 4 years of being in, had given us support before lottery funding existed, because I got the local MP, Dawn Pomerolo, Tory councillors, wasn't political, so on both parties, local community people were so supporting us because they knew we were a young family that was helping working class people. We had a lot of unemployment rates. We were welcoming disabled people, and so consequently we ticked a lot of boxes, so we got funding. But after a while, even that funding, we realised, it was something like 25 grand, which in those days equivalent about 45 grand now. You can do the maths. It kept us going, and we were clean and tidy. But when David Lloyd's opened up the road, that was it. We had hemorrhaged a lot of people through the competition, and we decided that for us, with young families doing 6-day weeks, 12-hour days, as much as we loved it, we had to reinvent ourselves yet again. So this was like early 30s, and basically we sold the gym very quickly. But the guy who bought it sort of, very flatteringly said, Mark, you've got such a connection with everybody, everyone sort of connects with you, it's your gym. He said, I'm into training, he was a big unit. He said, but I'm not a gym, I don't know how to be the landlord of your pub, if you know what I mean. So I've gone, okay. He said, could you just stay around for a couple of months, have you got any job lined up? I said, no, we sold the gym, paid off our bank loan, paid off any debts, and we'd come over, I think we'd both come, I swear to you, with about 3.5, 4 grand each when we sold it. So you can imagine, I did need to find a job quick with 3 kids under the age of 10. So basically, randomly, I stayed on for another year, and during that time, where I managed the facility or didn't own it, that's when my association with Bristol City came. And it's all started with me doing a box size class. A very good friend of mine, a black lad called Jasper Thompson, or Hubert Thompson, he's well known for Help the Homeless, wonderful human being, big City fan. He brought his friend, Terry Connor, who was the assistant manager to John Ward at the time, who was doing his rehab, to the class. Terry loved it, came up to me and said, I could do with someone like you. On Friday afternoon, my gym players and the young players, I do a fitness session with them to keep on their toes. All right, anyway, in the story. So for 6 weeks I did that. And from there I built a really good rapport. Terry said to the manager, John, at the time, and this is where they were in the championship, by the way. So they were in the championship, they were promoted. So the year of Idiak in Bay, Tommy Doherty, Scott Murray, Brian Tinney, Nicky Bell, those people. And John Ward said, right, this is great. And John, once a month, would bring them down as a squad to the gym, and I would do an hour and a half boxing circuit with them. And individually, the players, out of their own pocket, came to see me to improve. And so, within 6 months of doing that, Tony Forthrop took over after John had left. Benny Lennartson came in. That was an interesting era. Tony Pulis came in. I worked with all of these characters, and they all kept me as a consultant. So I was doing class sessions, individual sessions, assistant Buster with rehab and Joe and Shay at the time. And then eventually I was offered a permanent part-time role when Tony Forthrop, Lee Rodinga and Dave Burnside took over, and that was unbelievable. So I now was an official in the programme on the team picture, and this was 2000. And that was just incredible. And we actually were in the final against Stoke City. I think it's the Auto Wins Screens final. And I never actually got to play at Wembley, but I actually ran out at Wembley, did a warm up.
Oh, nice.
And Tommy, my dad, and Debbie were in the away end, So anyway, behind the goal, and Billy Russell, who was a good mate of mine, let me take a shot. I actually scored a goal at Wembley. I've got a picture of it.
Hey.
So lifetime achievement, box ticked, all the rest of it, and it was 80,000. It was all red and white. Stoke were red and white. City were red and white.
Yeah.
The result didn't go our way, but we stayed at Bisham Abbey overnight. My roommate was Tommy Dark, who I was very close to, got on really well with. The whole experience was surreal, James. It was fantastic. And as a local guy who'd worked his way up, almost through the back door, if you like, randomly, it was the way. I had to keep proving myself to every manager, to every director. Whether it was the classes, the little group rehab classes I did, or the one-to-ones I did. It was all about showing I could make a difference. I was under pressure to prove to myself because I was desperate to get a role there. I did want to remain as the manager of the gym I'd sold forever, clearly.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a strange place to be. So for me, the opportunity of working with Bristol City was just unbelievable. And then 2001 to 2002 was the only year that I was there at Bristol City for 4.5 years, but in some shape or form. But this was when my role absolutely went full time. And having done the previous pre-season when Danny Wilson came in, who one of the nicest guys I've ever met.
Yeah.
Brilliant manager at that level for me, and a great all-round human being. We had a great bond. Tough northerner from Wigan, liked his boxing.
Yeah.
He liked what I was about.
Yeah.
And he was the lad that at Christmas would say, right, the lads are going out at Christmas, go out with them and look after them.
Yeah.
I was like an older brother to the players because I was late 30s, early 40s, late 30s. So I kind of I was very close to the group, and there was a respect, and enough said. But what Danny did, he got me to get the full-time role, and I did the whole pre-season, the whole 2 pre-seasons. I ran it, and it was based on the Degana model of Fulham, French guy who brought in this model, which was also used by Keegan. 3 training sessions a day, so your first run of the day was 7 o'clock. It was literally a boot camp.
Okay.
And then you had a mid-morning speed session, then you had dinner, and then you go to the gym, do a strength session, and then you did patterns of play and ball-related fitness in the afternoon. So I would get up at 5:30, so it was literally travelling to 13, 14-hour days, and I loved it. It was like, and I was heading up with the physios, the physical side of it, and liaising with Frank Barlow, the assistant coach, Sean Taylor, the reserve team coach, and Danny, how we integrated as a team. In terms of my professional pride, hard to touch that. Sense of reality.
Was it successful? Training that much?
Yeah, it was amazing because, and again, I didn't set out for this. I only realised how much I was valued. The players made me feel very, very valued, and told me that all the time. And they were very appreciative of me, and they related to me because they knew I wasn't a sports science geek. I was one of them. Yeah. Who knew his shit, but was delivering. Now again, I was judged on the fact that certain players were strong on the pitch, that were less injury prone, that were recovering from hamstring strains, that were faster, covering more distance. So it wasn't just purely subjective; it was on results. Yeah, there's measurable results that you can. You got it. But the problem was that the City didn't get promoted on that season, and so Steve Mansell had just taken over from John Laycock, who had taken over from Scott Davison, who ended up being, and still is to this day, one of my closest friends. Scott was a young, driven, energetic, passionate City fan, still remains to this day. An incredibly successful entrepreneurial man, and one of the most lovely, inspiring human beings I've ever met in my life. Down-to-earth guy. I became his personal trainer, and this is in the early days of being with City, so before I became full-time. So he was, very supportive of me, but then he relinquished his chairman role. And Steve, who I got on well with, nothing personal, but he said me, Sean Taylor, and another coach, they were going to do a cost-cutting exercise, and I needed to go part-time. Now, having a boy and girl twin that were turning 11, we were going to have to separate them, being boy and a girl, I was going to have to build a loft room or another bedroom or extension or whatever. And we weren't on the amount of money to do that. And when the role became part-time, I realised I couldn't stay.
When you said Steve Lansdowne.
Steve Lansdowne. Yeah, they made the decision. They called me in. But to show my, humbling popularity was the Radio Bristol, Simon Parkinson, the Evening Post, Jeff Twentyman.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel sorry for Steve really, but they grilled the directors at the time and said, "How can you do this to Mark and Sean?" Now, Sean was a City legend. I was a fitness coach. Sean's up there. I'm nowhere near his level or his status, but ironically, I helped Sean get back playing after 9 months with the cruise ship, and we actually became really close friends, which is really ironic. But so we were both devoted when we were kids, because effectively Sean was in the same boat. He couldn't live on what was it, 15 grand a year or whatever it was, in those days. So basically, the support in the press, they did a great big article, and it was like, they got Danny Wilson to quote that we can't keep chopping bits off, and Mark's the best fitness coach I've worked with outside the Premiership, and that's the proudest compliment I've ever made. He didn't want me to go, and it caused all sorts of problems. I'm not saying for 1 minute that's why Danny got the sack, but he didn't do himself any favours by backing me. And that was the bond. When he won Manager of the Month, he took us out for a meal in town.
Yeah.
And he valued his team, and as a result, I never felt more important under any other manager other than him. So that was an amazing experience.
So how did Pete get into all this then, Mr.
Mr. Foley came along as somebody who I knew and liked on a human level, as somebody who came to my gym at Design Embodies. So I'd known him for a few years. He got in something called SAQ, Speed, Agility, Quickness, which he was very good at. He loved my classes, he did my classes, and he enjoyed training in the gym, and just a lovely guy, so I didn't know him that well at the time. But I could see that he had something in terms of, I've always been looking outside the box, always, and probably I think I was ahead of my time in my thinking in terms of conditioning. Being an expert to myself, I knew about running technique, and I knew how acceleration in short distances and efficiency in football was key. Pete, as the visionary and genius that he is and was then, got into SAQ, and at that time he introduced me to it, and he was very good at it. And so I thought, do you know what? I'm going to get Pete involved with this. So it was me dealing with the club, it was me doing the stuff, it was me doing the contact with the players, and I thought, when we were doing my warm-ups in the morning, I mentioned to Danny and Frank, I said, look, Pete's definitely got something here. It's a bit different, and it's being used, Arsenal, Wenger was using it at the time. It's cutting edge. And so Pete came along and did a few sessions, which we co-presented, half an hour here, half an hour there.
Yeah.
So I wasn't putting under pressure, because Pete was not happy in big groups at that time, wasn't as confident as a coach as he was then. Brilliant as he was, it wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have set him up to fail. But he did really well. The lads liked him. He was much shyer, much less outgoing than myself, but Pete could see he had something. And individual players really bonded with him, and he struck up good relationships in time. And not only did I lose my role there, as a result, Pete's chance to have been an assistant fitness coach, which was always my intention to get in that role, because he covered things that, as a fitness coach, this, James, the very high level you're at now and have been at, and I'm sure will remain, is that fitness coaching and fitness conditioning in football covers so many disciplines. And you look at every club nowadays, and there are departments.
Yeah.
I was on my own with Pete's, what effectively was voluntary help. And if you look back at it, that was the sign of the times. Whereas now the world is thankfully improved.
Got a job for everything now.
You've got it. The medical team in some clubs now is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I loved that challenge of being the only man. But Pete was great. He would come in through volunteering. He would come and sit down. David would always have dinner with some of the players, joining with the sessions. And in the end, certain individual players, particularly like Mickey Bell and Matt Hill, would do stuff with him whilst I was doing other stuff with like strength work in the gym and stuff like that. So Pete was really, really good, and it gave Pete, I think, a great amount of confidence in his own belief, in his own skill set. I kept telling him how proud I was of him, and he went from being a very shy person into being somebody that was in that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I saw it blossom. But out of that, other fruit was born, which is another chapter.
The next chapter would be?
The next chapter was that I then found myself having left Bristol City, so this is another fifth or sixth major change in my career.
Yeah.
So I'm now 42, being told they weren't sacking me, it wasn't being made redundant, but there was no full-time role. So I had to walk, and it was emotional, it was hard, it was difficult, and Pete was devoted as well, and but anyway, most importantly, it was my full-time job. I had a family. I'd been there for 4.5 years, and the dream come true had come to an end. So, like I've always had to do in my life, this is a bit of a theme going on here. I knew, because Debbie was earning a lot of money, I wasn't earning money, and I had a mortgage to pay, and like a lot of people, I had to pull my finger out and find something. So you're talking about a guy, early 40s, with an English degree, who's not going to suddenly be able to teach. What other career skills did I have? Basically, yes. Worked in professional sport, look on the CV, but it wasn't an obvious route. You've been in sportsman yourself, you get it. So I ended up working as the fitness consultant or fitness coach to all the academies at the Bristol Academy of Sport from 2002 to 2011. So I was there for 9 years.
Yeah.
An amazing experience. It was strange taking a step down, working with basically sixth formers, 16 to 19-year-olds. Female football academy, basketball academy, football academy, rugby academy were the only academies at the time. Within 9 years, when I left, there were 14 sports academies, I believe, from fencing, taekwondo, netball, table tennis, and so on. Remarkable thing to be involved with, and it was a wonderful experience for me. I felt like a fish out of water initially, but I loved working at the disciplines, the career development, and I must give the college their credit because they showered me with the opportunity to take courses, suspension training, kettlebell, sprint coaching, plyometrics, core ball, you name it. I was able to go to something far more, far less commercially driven, far more authentic theoretically, and respected than the reps personal training route. It was, I would go with England basketball, I would go with England table tennis, and go to Liverpool and interact and talk with high-level coaches about fitness, dynamics, and movement. So that multidisciplinary experience where I was able to upgrade my skills that I already had a great experience with at Bristol City, where I'd been to many seminars at Liverpool at the time before St George's was built, and I'd sat at the same table with many coaches that shared some great stuff with and great presentations. So being in that environment, I was like a sponge. I was soaking it all up. So I'd learned a lot of Bristol City through my experiences there, obviously. Theoretical as well as just personal experiences, because you're being taught by the best in coaching, the best in injury reduction. And you had Man United coaches with Arsenal coaches sat next to Bolton and Bristol City in Hartlepool. So it was kind of amazing.
Collaboration almost of that.
And I bumped into a guy called Tony Strudwick, who was, I believe, at Blackburn at the time. He ended up being Man United's head of science, sports science, and we struck it off a great friendship when he was at Blackburn and I was at City. And when he got to Man United, it was the year they won the Premiership. Pete and I, through my connection, were invited up to Man United and presented to Gary Walker, Dr. Gary Walker, and himself about suspension training and our particular form of it called FitKit at the time, which went on to be called FKPro. And Tony loved it, and there's a video of him on Vimeo promoting mentioning on it specifically, but that was very much a proud moment, because again it was like I wasn't a Man United fan, but
I was honoured and privileged, as was Pete, I know. We walked through Carrington and those doors.
Yeah.
Didn't actually meet Fergie, but there was Rio around, there was Michael Owen, there was Ryan Giggs, there was Schmeichel, there was da-da-da-da-da. And in the main, they really, really liked what we were doing. And in fact, Michael Owen was doing rehab and saw us doing stuff with the coaches on the straps and looked over at us and said, why can't I do that? That was great fun. And he was moaning to his physio. And Michael Owen, well, at the time was a legend. He was one of my heroes growing up.
Yeah.
So it was, again, really, James, surreal. And then, you know, so for us, going to film college then allowed me to discover suspension training. And it was Pete and I. The idea was in my head because I'd been a very bad gymnast at school. In other words, I wasn't too bad, but you know, didn't go on very far with it. But I realised I was fascinated. I from my martial arts training, I had this love of what I call progressive bodyweight training, calisthenics it's called today. And you know, having a good friend like Pete, he was knocking ideas into my head about SAQ, and I said to him, look, there's something here, Pete, there's something here. So we had this dual pulley stack machine, and I put the pin in the heaviest weight of the stack, and started doing various different crucifix, like gymnastic type movements. And we said, wow, this is just like the effect. And some of the younger players on the Friday who were injured had to do rehab, and said, this is great. You know, the coaches would get involved, like, you know, Tony Ricketts, Billy Clark, really good men, good coaches. And I'm thinking, wow, yeah, okay. And then Pete Googled, because I've never been on one of computers, because we said, you can't be taking a 2-ton weight stack out of the pitch and get it. So we came up with this idea of essentially a gymnastic ring type concept where it could be versatile and it could be adaptable and it could be useful to everybody, whatever their sport, whatever their ability, however muscular they were, how strong they were. Men, women, boys, girls, everybody could use it. And Pete came up with this thing called the TRX. Once he came up with it, he found this over in the States. We became involved with a project where we became the first people to bring the TRX to this country officially. And we used it and trialled it at the Academy of Sport, and it was very, very popular. But the problem we had was the being able to trap systems get long use. The support anchor was snapping, it was slipping, and I was kind of, is this fit for purpose? There's a danger health risk here. So we came up with the idea of a 2-strap system, and akin to the true gymnastic rings. Pete was the genius in terms of his practical brain and his thinking of the design and the adjustment and etc. I was more the innovator in kind of creating the exercises and applying them to sport, but we were a really good blend and a really, really good team.
Yeah.
And we decided actually in the end to leave film college because that role was, again, had its shelf life and the funding was going out of it. And I'd had a particularly, you know, long and successful journey there. I'd loved every minute of it. But again, it was time for change, and the role was changing, and the salary was being reduced, and so it was a motivator to be an entrepreneur, which I'm not, and I proved that. And Pete has proved himself over the years. He's continued the business, and he only worked at film briefly, because again, I pulled him along. And so what we're trying to do with Pete is to, not just that friendship, because I knew he had something that was different to other coaches, and I trusted him and I respected him. But again, his role was very brief at Filton, but we set up our company and went into collaboration with a marketing company, which they were great people, but in the end it didn't work as a business. And Pete, I sold my shares, and Pete has got the company to this day in the rest of his history, and he's doing incredibly well and is flourishing as a brilliant coach using suspension training. But that was in terms of the methodology or the techniques and the skill set that I would say as one of the most significant moments of my coaching life was that period where Pete and I, for 18 months, nearly 2 years, were going to the likes of literally Hereford, the SAS, going up. This isn't bragging, it's fact. Went to the Marines, went to the Navy.
Yeah.
went to St George's, went to Twickenham, and the hand camp clearly, and we were being respected and we were being appreciated by Uni of Bath, people like Brian Ashton, people that were at a very high level of professional and educational sports science across the board.
Yeah.
And we clearly weren't salesmen. We were coaches sharing a passion, and people bought into it. But in terms of where that helped myself, it made me realise that there was something that I was really proud of, that the vision had become a reality. I mean, people laugh and say, well, your name's on Wikipedia. Look, it means nothing in the sense that, we've got a name for FitKit as, we get acknowledged as being one of the developers of the system, but the irony of it was just a roller coaster. But in terms of what I got out of it as a coach, I can't speak for Pete, I can only speak for myself, is that it has been a eureka moment, because it's given me a tool and a training technique which I'm able to be creative with that is just incredible. Is it the only tool in the toolbox? Does it replace everything? No, we've never said that. I don't believe that now. But I think it's been a game changer for my own journey and for many people that I work with. So that's another exciting subject matter, and that's the past up to date, really.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible story from start to finish, really. It's some journey, but with all that knowledge there, because there's so much there that has been unpacked and could still be unpacked, but
Mm-hmm.
I think
you're right, it's a rich story.
Yeah, I think it ebbs and flows, as does everyone's life, but it really is a powerful story. Powerful is the word I'd use. It's really powerful. And I'm thinking, from my own personal, what a personal question that I have is, with the amount of knowledge that you have, which is so rare,
Mm-hmm.
and unique to yourself, is if you were to offer advice to
Mm-hmm.
somebody, elite athlete or not,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're thinking of getting into training or they are into training, what's a piece of advice that you would give them that's maybe given to you, that's stuck with you? What's a piece of advice that you would pass on with your knowledge of, in particular, the fitness industry, getting into the gym or getting into...
Mm-hmm. I think the universal... so it's going to be a generalised comment.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think realistic goal setting is important. I think everything is in the mind. Everything's in here in the heart. In other words, the mind is educate yourself. Try not to be overwhelmed by social media and the morass, the load of conflicting, fake, pseudo accurate information that's being dispensed out there. It's littered with crap, if I'm honest with you. There are nuggets of goodness, and that's all of it's rubbish. There are some authentic nuggets, but
it's really hard to find. Yeah,
it really is. And I think that in their desperation to get quicker, get bigger, get stronger, people will do anything. And if somebody's looking good and they're cogently expressing this is what you need to do, buy one of these tubs of miracle powders, or do this routine and it will make you the next Ronnie Coleman will have it. It's just, we all know it's not like that, but people are gullible, people are sucked in. So I would say education. I say educate yourself.
Whilst doing or before you go into the gym?
I would say it doesn't really matter. I think whether you go, preferably yes before you go in. I'm not saying you've got to take a degree in a master's course in strength conditioning, because that ain't going to do it. But learn about your body.
Yeah.
You don't need to know all the Latin names for every muscle group, I'm not saying that. But you need to know about, for example, the core. What does the core mean? Yeah. How can my core, improving my core? Yeah. Most guys in particular just want to go to the gym and
there's nothing wrong with that, but they're going to go mirror muscles, chest, biceps, abs, what they see in the mirror. Dysfunctional straight away, ignoring the back of the body. So learn those simple basic facts. Be disciplined. Set realistic goals. What are you wanting to do? Are you going to the gym because you like to go to the gym? It's better than going to the pub. Do you go to the gym because you feel you got to? What is your motivation? And that would be my next question to any client I see. What is the reason you want my help? How can I help you?
Yeah.
What is the more immediate priority? So if you start your process, whether you're looking to play good level football, rugby, whatever sport it is, or you want to improve physique, set realistic goals, define what you want to be, and give yourself a realistic time frame. Don't overreach. Don't set a target that you're not going to fulfill, but stay consistent.
I think that's pretty good advice, to be fair. But when you said learn the body, I really thought, this is. I think it's important. I personally, from my knowledge,
Sure.
think that it's important for people to understand their individual personal body as well as just as a general.
Brilliant.
So not just understanding core in general. It's also understanding, well, my own individual body, right, James. So in this instance, for me, it'd be, right, James, what do I want to improve? How am I going to improve? Okay, well, if I go to the gym in the evening, that works better for me, whereas some people it might work better in the mornings. Or and understanding yourself and your routine and I think that's important, to understand yourself mentally and physically, combining them together, understanding yourself the best you can would enable that to the maximum.
Yeah, I feel like I want to unpack that because, my answer is something dreadfully superficial and underwhelming because it was so generic. I truly believe that it is the Holy Trinity, mind, body and spirit. And yes, absolutely. It's learning about all the functionality of your body, understanding how we need to prepare for exercise. I still see people in the gym, I still see people at amateur sport level not warming up adequately.
What does that look like then?
It looks like...
If you were to take them and go, right, warm up with me because I'm going to do it.
I would look at...
Just briefly, but what would that
working from the feet up. All the joints, structures...
Start at the feet?
Start at the feet.
Yeah.
So ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, all the major joint sites need to be mobilised. The lumbar spine in particular needs to be ready. So you prepare the body for the specific role it's going to do.
Right.
So you wouldn't train a cricketer or a boxer the same way you would do a footballer.
Right.
Clearly not. Yes, there are consistencies in terms of it's a whole body warm-up, but you're preparing to perform.
Would you do? Sorry.
So
Would you do a whole? Sorry, just to interrupt quickly. Would you do a whole body warm up even if you were going to go in the gym, whether you're a footballer or not? Like, let's just say, say general. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, and you're going to do an upper body workout today.
Yeah.
Would you still warm up your whole body?
No. The thing is that it's the law of specificity. So if I'm going in to do a circuit, if I was going to do a warrior class or I was going to do a circuit class, which would be whole body, absolutely right. I would, of course, because I'm preparing to do a certain activity. It requires that preparation.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to be doing my chest and arms, I would definitely warm up my upper body and my core. But I wouldn't be that worried about my hamstrings or quads or my calves for obvious reasons. So, as I say, it's the law of specificity. But no, you make a great point about unpacking the whole notion of, be aware. Nutrition, wow, that's so important. Wow, it's so important. Again, there's as much misinformation and contradictory information out there as there is good. But again, do your research, look online, get yourself a good book from the States, do these human kinetics books.
Yeah.
There are great guys out there that are not promoting a brand, but are saying, look, this is what I've been doing with these athletes at this level.
Do you have any that you would suggest?
Yeah, very much so. I think there are a number of excellent coaches. Old school godfather Vern Gambetta, Paul Check, there is Michael Boyle, Mark Verstegen, there are Gray Cook, Gary Gray. These are people that are
functional physio-based performance athletic enhancers that worked in the States at the highest level.
That people can look up.
Amazing people. There's a guy who's very into his, I want to get his pronunciation right, Italian preparation coach called Guido Bruscia. Another fantastic person that's influenced me because it's given me the confidence to fulfill the intuitive connection I've seen with. I've had these ideas there, but they've articulated and they've actually executed those at a high level and made me think, wow, so that is the right path. So it's consolidated. I don't slavishly follow anybody, not out of arrogance or ego, but I think for myself. So I'm not a follower of a one particular form. Like
you just take it all. You just take it all.
I'm what you call a pluralist, Jane. I take on lots of influences and think, well, that works for him, that works for them. But you made a great point about individuality and it's not having a one-size-fits-all. And this is the trouble about, for me, look, if it works for people. And I'm not criticising because I'm not doing that. I could do it. Who say I won't? Maybe in the future. I don't know. But if you're with a person in a gym, and I'm looking at the angles at you as a good level athlete who's on the suspension straps, we'll say, and you're hitching your right shoulder on a movement, or your pelvis is rotating inwards when it should be stable and square. If I am giving you an online program to follow, written down, I'm not with you, and those subtle 2 and 3% can actually make a major difference to the efficiency and effectiveness of an exercise. I believe that if, this is my personal opinion, that if you're wanting, through needs, to improve yourself as an athlete, as a gym goer, as a sportsman, whatever, if you're going to be coached, for me, the best way, I find, it's personal to me too, I'm not saying right, I like to be in that room, in that vicinity, that I can observe, change, modify the posture, the stance, whatever it might be, to make that movement more applicable to that individual. Because a 6'4" individual with tight hamstrings, right, and long levers is going to move differently to somebody who's 5'2" and has got
100%.
hypermobility.
100%.
So there's no general rule, and I think getting self-awareness is something you're hinting at, and I think that's a really astute thing. Get to know yourself, get to know your limitations. Even the best athletes, even the world champions I've worked with, aren't good at everything because their Achilles heel might be that they haven't got very good ankle mobility or stability. It may be that they are quite tight in their glutes or hamstrings. They may lack a good push off on their left leg in acceleration. But these are the things. There's no such thing as perfection.
But what sets them aside to other people is that I found is at the top level they know, or they'll know themselves better than any
self-awareness.
The self-awareness is on another level.
Point,
so in order to just prevent injury, to just be able to improve in general, whether it's general public or an elite athlete, goes the whole spectrum, is self-awareness. The more self-aware you are about your body, about what you're doing, the better the outcome. The more you're going to probably feel better about yourself, or you're going to be able to at least do an action. Do something that would follow that. But
very good.
Did have a thing. What would be your top? This could be argumentative, but what would be your top 3 or 5 in range of importance as well? I don't mind if you go from most important to least, but number 1 we'll say is the most important. Obviously, number 5. Again, could be a little bit general, but like, what are the most important things for health in terms of, so like overall health, whether you're, like I said, athlete or not, in terms of nutrition, hydration, sleep, etc., all the fundamentals. What would be your top 3 or 5?
That's a really good question. It's a difficult one. I think that for me they're all interrelated. It's not a cop-out. I'm not fudging the issue, I'm not going to face it. Nutrition, I would use a collective phrase to be a bit naughty really and stretch the boundaries by saying I'm going to include in that hydration as well. And potentially supplementation. So that we'll call that. Recovery, I'm actually putting before nothing. I'm just doing a random order.
Recovery is about, as you say, adequate sleep, detraining, active rest periods, whether it's aqua, walking, workouts, whatever.
Yeah.
Flexibility and stability are very much, flexibility and mobility can mean very similar things.
Yeah.
But we're talking not just flexibility in muscles, but mobility through the joint structures as a kinetic chain. And then strength and endurance would be separate entities in their own, because strength could be relative body strength to the gymnast, where they're using their body weight as a load. For a weightlifter, obviously lifting a big heavy weight. For a footballer, it's strength in resisting a challenge in a game of football, in a tackle situation. So,
what would your order be out of those? Oh, sleep as well, I guess, is really sleep as well.
I put that in with being very naughty, so I'm doing
go on. All right, got it. Yeah.
A bit of a double barrel with the sleep and recovery.
Okay, yeah.
So it's impossible, I suppose, because it depends on what the activity is. I mean, for everybody, I would say
a rule of thumb. Let's just say let's just say rule of thumb.
Look, I think you need endurance to survive. Yeah, you need, so endurance and strength are equally applicable, because without strength you can't get out of a chair. Yeah, you can't walk up the stairs. But without endurance, and you haven't got the energy to move.
Yeah,
these are really extreme examples. So they are imperative. Mobility, stability are very, very important, but I would say those are the two kingpins, with nutrition and recovery. And recovery including sleep and rest.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my top four. Things like speed endurance, core stability, all those things are very important, but that's like the underpinning components of fitness for me, for everybody, I think. Yeah. Because without basic strength, that's why people, as they get older and they don't exercise as much and they lose muscle mass, there are so many falls, and my beloved father experienced it when he broke his hip, which accelerated his demise without a doubt. And so a lack of strength is as life-changing as a lack of aerobic fitness, without a doubt for me, depending on age factors and circumstances. So, I'm taking it very seriously, and I can try to be as considerate as I can, because it's a hard question. It's a really good question. It's very hard.
It's a hard question. I understand what I'm asking, but all right. So before we get onto the final balance, with the tarot cards, what is the best piece of advice that Mark Hammond has received? And before you answer that, I'll give you a bit of time, breathing space to think about that. The best piece of advice you could have read, even could be in a book, could be you've seen on social media or got told it, whatever. The best piece of advice for no matter who I've spoke to has said how brilliant you are and how amazing you are as a person, and also to mention from multiple different people, the best motivational instructor and person to be around. I think it's a pretty important question to go.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, these are incredible accolades, mate. I'm very, very flattered.
I've asked multiple people before you come on. It's.
First, I'm very humble.
And
I'm also very touched. I won't lie. That is lovely to hear, and I really appreciate hearing it.
I think the most important is.
I'm not just falsely cool about it.
No.
I really appreciate it.
It's not just career. A lot of what come through was actually Mark Hammond, the dad, the person, if that makes sense. The just you, not just Mark Hammond, the PT, if that makes sense, or the gym instructor, or anything like that. It's you as the package.
Very, very, very lovely to hear.
I think it's important for people to hear. Even the motivator needs a motivator.
That's a great phrase. And do you know what?
So
there's a very clever friend of mine, and a very, very clever friend, and a very dear friend of mine called Phil Kite. One of the nicest human beings you ever wish to meet. who's been for a bit of life himself, but ex-goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Physio at Rovers, who I worked with for a couple of years, and is a lifelong friend, and he was there for me, as was his wonderful family and his wife when we lost our Tommy. He used that phrase a lot, James, who motivates the motivator, and that's right. There's no man is an island, so yeah, wow. My father was incredibly influential on me because he was somebody who had a very complicated past. And it's sketchy because he was, there's a bit of confusion as to, potentially, anyway, who his real mum was. He looked after his dad, who had terminal brain cancer, who died when he was 17, and he was left on his own to do that.
Yeah.
So he was a incredibly brave, sensitive, loving, and this is, that's my dad, everyone feels like that, rah, rah, rah. I'm so conscious of what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. He was just like no other human being I've ever met. And he gave me so much love and so much encouragement. He recognised in me quite a vulnerable, very hypersensitive, potentially talented, creative person, but obviously he changed my life with the words he gave me, everything that he did, but particularly his analogy, bless his heart. He loved his rugby, and he supported me in everything I did. And he started a football team, not as a footballer himself. He was one of the last national servicemen. So in Colby, there's the baby boom. I was 7. And there's a lovely story, and so a lot of the boys in the village of Colby Heath had nothing to go, no youth clubs, no nothing, so him and a couple of neighbours formed the first ever football team called the Colby Heath Miners. And believe it or not, 2 of the players who were in that randomly went on to become professional footballers. A very famous guy in the local area, much older than you, who used to play for Roseville and had Swindon, Charlton, Cardiff, Luton, Steve White. He had his first games of football. So my dad would say to me, every rugby analogy would come out, I'd say, Dad, he said, that's your man. And my dad was not a hard man, wasn't a disciplined player, he wasn't a cruel man.
Yeah.
So we played Hartcliffe in the 70s, and I swear to you, James, these guys didn't have rugby boots, they came on with Dr. Martens on.
Oh.
Feather cut, this guy must have been, I was 11, and this guy must have been 6 foot then, gangly, earrings in those days, that was rare, he had a chain on his neck, I kid you not, this is Hartcliffe, Kingswood, Wales, we went all over. I'm not denigrating Hartcliffe, I've got loads of mates in I'm just telling you as it was.
Yeah.
And so the ridings was not to have a rough area, Winterbourne, but my dad said to me, that's your man. So what do you mean? He said, that's your wing, that's your flanker, that's your wing forward, he's your opponent, you've got to bring him down.
Yeah.
Like I said, and he said, if you go into it and you think you're going to get hurt, you will. And that was his metaphor for life, that if you go into it and you think you're going to fail, you will. And I think that he taught me the power of positivity. His great phrases were make it last, savor every minute. And he used to eat very slowly, he drove slowly, he talked quite slowly. But he was a deliberate thinker, and he meant everything he said. But he made me feel like I could walk through walls. When I was really down and life was hard, he gave me encouragement through physical strength, became self-belief and a sense of self-awareness and pride.
Yeah.
Not in a vanity sense, it just gave me that inner sense of like, okay, I've got my bulletproof vest on now, and and then out of that my confidence grew. If I told you when I was 17 or 18, I was so nervous and shy and self-conscious, I swear to you, I wouldn't be happy walking into a shop. I couldn't walk into a pub on my own. I didn't like get on buses, so I thought people were looking at me. Absolute opposite to vanity, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I didn't self-loathe myself, but I clearly had issues looking back on it that were quite bad. And by going into a gym, building up my physique and flourishing through sport, I found, through first-hand experience, that I actually could do something.
Yeah. And
I wasn't competing against anybody, but my mates who didn't do it said, oh God, you're looking good, or blimey, you're looking strong. And I thought, oh, okay then. And out of that, the guy that would even walk into a shop, or if my mum said, go around and get a loaf of bread, I was nervous and shy. I was awkward. I'm now doing what I'm doing, I've done 40 years, which is a people person, confident, talk to anybody. And I think that he changed my life more than anybody. And then my beautiful wife, Debbie, who had an extremely tough upbringing, which I won't go into, but who has been with me through thick and thin, every way of the journey. The most incredible mother to our beloved Tommy, to our Ben, and to, of course, our beautiful Holly. A fantastic friend, wife, couldn't say a bad word about her. Heart of gold, beautiful inside and out. A beautiful daughter-in-law to my dad. She looked after him when he was dying as much as I did. He was almost like a father to her because she didn't have a father very much in her life through tragedy and illness. So those are the two people, not famous people, not sports people. Without a doubt, they've influenced me and, to be honest, who made me who I am.
What a beautiful way to come full circle almost, and I think you ready for the final balance?
No, I've absolutely loved it.
Well, so have I.
Mate, this has been more powerful than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
I swear to you that I was feeling, if you said to me, Mike Tyson wants to have a scrap with you now, I'd lose, but I would have taken him on.
You give it a go.
I would have given it a go. And I would have put up a fight, but I'm not, it's not, I use the analogy too much, it's not aggressive. But that's the lovely thing about this situation, and I must credit you. I'm not kissing your ass. Fucking hell, mate, you're a legend.
Thank you, Benny.
You're such a good guy.
Thank you, Benny.
Oh, I would have done this with anybody else.
Well, it means a lot. You just even sitting down.
Because I swear to you, I'm not used to getting that kind of, I don't mean sympathy, but that's kind of rare. For somebody to have the honesty. I don't know if people feel like that, and the very fact you said those lovely things, when I'm not 100% yet, although I'm strong, I wouldn't lie, that was fucking beautiful, mate. I wasn't expecting that. I actually thought, I'm thinking, is he too ugly? I'm not being my grand would have said, oh, are those dinosaurs real? It's like, it's like a dodgy old fool, which I am at times, but I don't take myself too seriously. I mean, the whole preacher of pain thing was to diffuse that sense of, I'm a preacher, I know all of it, and pain is not really a sadism thing. I think the fact it diffuses that sense of like, look, hang on, I'm not taking myself too seriously, I'm not giving all the answers, but the preachers I like, because the evangelical, spiritual, deep south black preachers, I really think they speak from the heart and the passion, and they impress me. If I go to a Church of England service, I fall asleep, but these people are meaning it, and I think that is what I mean, is I'm passionate about what I do. I take what I do totally seriously, and is a passionate, I'm being me, and you know, I've got something to give, but it's that fine line. Confidence and arrogance are very hard to separate sometimes. If an athlete or a coach is overconfident, to me, that borderlines arrogance and complacency. I'm still learning. I chat to Pete a lot, I listen to what he's doing, I listen to loads of other coaches, I know he does the same with me. In other words, I don't claim to have all the answers, and anybody who does needs to change their mindset.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's probably why you have been and will be so successful, and have impacted not even the people I've asked, but that also many other people throughout your whole journey, your whole life. So
if I could say one thing before we just finish that up, if I may, I just feel if I was born to do anything on this life, apart from give a lot of love to people I love and just be honest, and I can't, the fact you highlight it kind of almost deflates it, it sounds a contradiction, but I know I can't be somebody, even as a kid, I'm a rubbish liar, in other words, authenticity, integrity, honesty, for all warts and all, that's why, not being too ashamed to cry, or 10 years ago I'd have been worried the fact there's grey in my beard when I used to look quite young for my age, but you embrace where you are, and vanity and things like that don't matter anymore, and it's not because you're giving up or throwing in the towel, far from it. You embrace that part of your life. So how does one embrace losing a child? Well, we covered that one, it's impossible. But if I could say anything, I believe as a human being, I want to make people feel they can, to overcome I don't mean as a life coach or as a therapist, I mean because that was Tommy's expertise, and that would be sacrilegious on every level to do that. Because he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I consider myself to be able to get inside people's heads and make them, you used it, and I appreciate that. Motivate and inspire is what I'm going to try and do, because it's not false energy, it's not, people can tell in the gut.
Yeah.
You know as a sportsman,
Yeah,
as a
you can
deep
tell.
guy, if somebody's saying you can do this and they don't really have it in their eyes.
Before they even say it, you can tell if they mean something or not.
You just think, you know, it is what it is.
You can tell by someone's energy before they even open their mouth. Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
And this is what I'm saying about you. If you look for that connection, it ain't going to work. So for me, I say to people, feel, follow your heart. I'm not saying like Icarus and Daedalus. So Icarus didn't take his dad's advice and went and his wings burnt in the wax because he went near the sun. And that's the analogy of overreaching, okay? Don't overreach, but then also don't be crushed by people and saying, like, the obvious one to say is, well, you're always going to be fat, you've got heavy bones, or you're never going to be quick, or you haven't got the genetics to be strong, or you can't do that because you've broken your anterior cruciate ligament, you've got a broken collarbone, you'll never be able to bench press or throw a tennis ball again, hit a tennis ball again. The number of times I have heard that where a respective diagnosis has been given and prediction has been given that is so negative it's crushed that individual. Now I don't know the person that's given that advice, so it's not a bitter retort to them or trying to have one over on them. But if somebody comes to me mentally broken, spirit's broken because of whatever reason, I can't wave a magic wand. I'm not saying I've got a magic formula, I go, well, I'll get this out of my pocket. But what I do know is I can make them feel that they can give themselves the best chance to overcome that obstacle. And the number of people that have defied even my own positive aspirations for them is incredible. So the power of the mind, believe in yourself, and don't set the bar too high or too low. Keep going. Keep going. That's all we can do.
Yeah, 100%.
Keep going.
Great advice.
When sometimes it's like in a game on the pitch, the metaphors, you're on the pitch and the rain's against you, the ref's against you, and you know the opposition aren't as good as you, you know they haven't trained as hard as you, they know they haven't got the same ability as you. But guess what? It was just one of them days. But next week, do you not turn up for training? Do you pack up? Do you start doubting yourself? No, you keep going. And that's the hardest thing.
Even after the game, so related to myself, so do I then recover, right?
Perfect.
Do I then just chuck everything out the window, or do I just keep going? Do you know what I mean?
Perfect.
It's what you do when you...
And that's even more reason then, isn't it?
I think it's about the disciplines. Discipline is so much more important than motivation. The discipline and the consistency as well. And discipline and consistency, I kind of put... they're not identical, but they kind of put them together.
You're absolutely right. So I think at your level, you're already there because you're super motivated as a human being. You're incredibly disciplined. And I think that at the level you're at and throughout professional elite sport, the motivation should be there. I agree entirely. And that's where the discipline, the process is vital. I just think the motivation probably applies to the more general populace who have been told they can do it and written off, for want of a better word, and believe the hype. Now, tragically in some instances, there's going to be a truth. Like if somebody has had a serious injury and they're told they can't, do their previous PB of 100 metres, that could well be a biological and physiological fact. But there always can be a nuance. There always can be a way to make things better.
There's still positive that could become from it.
Amazing. Yeah. And people reinvent themselves in different ways, and why not? There's that energy. That the trouble is with so many sports people, in my experience, James, is that so many rugby league players in particular and boxers who are in that community where they're working class people, so working class sport. It can be big money, but it's very often not a lot of money involved. They're legends within their own small towns and communities. When their career ends, what now? Where do they go? Have they got the education or the skill set to follow a different career path?
when that career ends, because all the way through their lives it's been boxing, it's been football, it's been rugby.
Yeah.
And I've been with so many parents, young players, young athletes who've come that close to making it, that fine line. And very often it isn't fair. Very often they perhaps could have gone through that other door. There was the door yes, there's the door no. And it's a subjective decision on one random person sometimes that can change everyone's life. But they find a way to reinvent themselves, and maybe that energy and that passion and that competitive nature and that need to be physical, divert it somewhere else, another channel.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the end of the world. Amen.
Amen. Do you have a card that has been drawn to you? I tend to tell people to let them intuition, whichever card, don't overthink. Just
Can I take this one?
Yeah. Take it, fill it through your boots, carry on. Yeah, have a look. What is it?
It is the star.
Wow, nice. Sometimes I ask what do you think the star means? If you were to look at the card, I mean, without being too.
The blonde lady with large breasts.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, yes.
Naked lady on the card. I promise they're not all the star.
No, I'm joking, man. No.
Yeah, there you go. There's the devil. Yeah.
Oh, mate, of course, yeah. I don't know if one minute do that.
Yeah, the star. What do you
I
think?
don't know what it means, actually. No clue.
Not a clue.
No, that's one I.
Without looking at my question, I'm pretty sure the star is all to do with hope. All to do with hope. Yeah, I'll give you a question for it now. What number?
Wow.
I am right. Look at that. It's even got the word in the question. Right now, what's giving you the most hope for the future? What a lovely question. And well-rounded to the podcast, because we started with the future. We're going to end with the future.
Yeah, what gives me most hope? To remain physically healthy and mentally strong, to keep on supporting and loving Debbie and Holly and Ben and all my close family and friends, and hope that I can actually execute, sounds rather a hard term, but make happen those aspirations I talked about, James, about the new plan.
Yeah.
And hope to find that happiness which has been absence from my life, a different kind of happiness. Was life going to be the same again? But hope to find in time a happier, calmer life. That's it.
I think everything you said was absolutely spot on and beautiful. And fair play, because that's not to really speak from the heart, which you've clearly done throughout the whole entire time. Is
I did look at my notes once actually in the end. It's funny that. And there's the difference between me and that audience I did when you and Ellie was there. I'm so different to where I was then, and that was 4 months ago.
Yeah.
I'm actually never say this, but I can say it for you because I'm really close to you. I'm actually proud of myself, because I was not, I mean, I'm still of that old school that, to cry and break down in front of anybody is not easy. But kind of when you've held your own son, and I held him in his ashes the other night, nothing matters. Ego, vanity. I know that, because it's you, and because you're such an incredibly lovely human being who's so deep, and shows me nothing but total respect. Not that I want it or demand it, it's just you just give it. You're such a lovely person. I felt comfortable doing that. I didn't feel awkward at all.
I could tell the way you speak, just everything, the way you answered it. Yeah, thank you for coming on, because honestly, that was just the way you spoke.
Oh, bless you, mate.
It is not easy to. I say it to every single person because it's not, and I really get it, and it's a long time as well. That's 2.5 hours there.
Wow. Well, if I can say to you, mate, something that I've learned about myself as well, and there you go. You said it. So, a very wise observation. You're learning all the time. So when I was in recovery after the trauma, again, I'm going to use a label because it was given to me, PTSD. And it explained the physiological issues and all things I had. But one of the people that spoke to me said, "You're an empath," and I'm pretty articulate. I'm like, what does that mean? Empath, empathy anyway. So I googled it, and she said it's very, very wearing when you feel and suffer acutely, intuitively, other people's pain they're close to you. And what it was with me, that after Tommy died, I was so scared that Holly or Debbie were going to have an accident. Neither of them are big drinkers, but
Yeah.
take too much drink and
No,
then
yeah.
have a car accident or fall down the stairs. I became irrational, overprotective, and I realised, and this is what they explained to me, that my mindset was not about my own grief, which I couldn't process, but I was straight away desperately nervous and anxious about them, and to the point where Holly only recently said to me, "Dad, you've got to stop texting me twice a day. I'm in A&E looking after people. I love you to bits. I'm fine. Just relax." And that the penny dropped, because it makes you very, very anxious because of obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It changes the way you are. But yeah, I think this has been an amazing experience for me.
Thank you.
Amazing experience, and it's been an absolute.
Hopefully, I was going to say, hopefully you enjoyed it.
Oh, mate!